Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
I'm really fascinated by is, and I was just talking to Mary Jane Mack, and you guys know Mary Jane, right, Benny? Mary Jane and Nancy?
Oh, yeah, love her.
Yeah. One of the things I'm discovering with people is that they're really out and about. I think all of us are doing this. I don't want to just say it's them. I think it's all of us are doing this. And what we're doing is we're kind of out and about in a way that is different than the way we've been out and about before. And I find that fascinating because, people have asked me, why is it so many people are wanting to change or accelerate? And, I don't have an answer for everybody. I just know that for a lot of us that have said yes to do something to create a better world, we're actually being asked to do it bigger, better, and faster. And that is an energy. And so what I find fascinating is it's not just us. It is the people like you listening to the show. You're being called forward in ways you can't even imagine. And that's why we do what we do. Today I want to introduce you to somebody, Sharon Rolph, who is somebody that is about moving things forward, is about looking at life and asking yourselves the question, what is it about you, about me, about us that inspires us to have courage enough to take our lives to where the life wants to go? Today, what you're going to hear about from Sharon is her creative side that matches with her passion to help people repurpose their skills, revive their dreams, and move into expansive possibilities is important. I mean, for us, that has been our motto, to live in the world of expansive, positive possibilities. But more than that, it is her work that she does to encourage people to follow the dream and then understand that beyond that, is you can live the dream. So today's show is about that and answering the question, what stops you? Sharon, great to have you here.
Thanks, Dr. Pat. It's good to be here.
What do you find in your list of things when you're looking at things that stop people? What do you find that is? What is it that gets them hooked on not moving forward?
Well, sometimes it's people in our lives who have said yes or no to that's not a good idea. But I think most of the time when it comes to our personal reason, it's not having enough courage. Mm-hmm. Courage to be different, courage to take a risk, courage to, am I really on the right track here?
Has that shown up for you in your life? I mean, because what I have found over time is that, I tend to talk about things that are showing up for me in the moment, in the day, in the week, in the year. How has that for you been an important thing to look at?
Well, I always chuckle at the saying that I picked up years ago. It says, yeah, you're different. You're outstanding in your field. And I thought, I felt that way in my family because I was the only one that went to college. And, being understood just by my family members was sometimes a challenge. But taking the risk to the expense to go to college, the going to another part of the state, all kinds of new things. I've actually moved out of the state to Florida and Dallas. And man, that takes a lot of courage. But what helped me with that move was I had a sense that something was going to be changing. And so it was kind of calling me. And that certainly makes change easier. Retirement is certainly a transition too that is hard to handle sometimes. How about you, Dr. Pat?
Let me ask you. You mentioned courage. I want to hear from you what courage has meant to you.
Courage is listening and trusting that thing that I sense is a message for me alone. And the risk to that is nobody else may understand or even care to understand. They just may make a quick judgment. And of course, judgments can shut us down. But when you're living from what your authentic self is, it takes courage to live by your own convictions.
Mm. Mm. And so, I mean, that sounds like when we look at the word courage, and we hear that word a lot, you know, there are different levels of courage. And, you know, it's one of those words that I think we're starting to see more and more, especially now coming out and living your dream. Because sometimes when you even decide and talk about what your dream is, that in its very nature is subject to backlash.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not being understood, not feeling lonely in that process. Where's the support? You may have to do it without support.
Mm-hmm.
And is that going to stop you?
I don't know. I mean, I have to say that there have been times in my life where I have been immobilized. And, you know, I think it's going to be different for everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, something that I think you're going to talk about here is mundane versus energized. You know, there are days that I wake up and I ask, what is mine to do today? And it's the laundry. But how does that fit into this? Because even if we have to do the laundry, it doesn't mean that that's stopping us from really stepping out in the world the way we want.
I think mundane can get us so powered down to not look back out on the horizon and where was it I thought I was going? That you get overwhelmed with the mundane. You know, I've got to do laundry every day. You know, is there some other way that laundry could be done so you can keep your eyes once in a while on that bigger dream? I think also that year in and year out, it's amazing how fast the years go. And, I was going to do that last year and it's this year and I still haven't done it. So the looking at the horizon is pretty important to keep our sense of who we are. Because I actually like to show my little artwork here. This is a line from the Lion King. Have you forgotten who you are? Because the skill, the talent, the experience, the things that give you energy instead of being mundane is really key to moving forward and keeping that momentum going.
Mm. You know, part of this too is really looking at what feeds us, what fuels us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the topic that, you know, you brought to the forefront here is the question of what stops you. What have you found some of the things are that have stopped you in your past?
Well, I pretty much have moved at my own pace. I could have let being single all my life stop me. Nope, that's not going to stop me. I could let finances stop me. And, you know, our ingenuity can figure out a way if we tell it how could we afford it yet, or when can we afford it. The other thing, Dr. Pat, I think I'd like to bring out here too is that when we were kids, junior high, senior high, we had to fit in. There was a lot of pressure to fit in and be conforming. And today's world is alive with letting a lot of people be their unique self. I love the word unique. So that conforming is a mindset we need to put back on the back burner. That's old school. And I want to encourage people to be empowered with their unique expression of themselves.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about courage and how does courage change everything. But if courage does change everything, then what happens when we're not able to muster up enough courage? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about that with my guest today, Sharon Rolph. Everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Did you give me a little teaser?
Yeah.
With Stevie Nicks?
Yeah. One of your faves.
Totally one of my faves. Absolutely one of my faves. I want to be drinking whatever she's drinking. She looks like she did when I saw her in concert, like when? A gazillion years ago. Yeah. And you know what? You know what, Benny? It's so interesting you played that because, we're talking about what stops you. And I got to tell you, when I think about Stevie Nicks, I don't think that I can think about a time, like some artists, they'll get rolling, then they step away and then they come back. Well, when I think about Stevie Nicks, I think about Fleetwood Mac. Then I watched her, and like you, Benny, reinvent herself, right? Then I watched her move into television. And by the way, my favorite of all of the AHS series, American Horror Story series, right, was the one they did with Stevie Nicks. Just amazing. So musician, band, solo artist, television, and movies. And that's what this is about, because we're talking about what stops you. And I wonder if I was inside the brain of Stevie Nicks, I kind of wonder a little bit about that. And as a matter of fact, I was just following Dolly Parton, and Dolly Parton has a podcast. And so I was looking at that. And one of the episode titles for Dolly Parton is, and Dolly Parton is she is the one that wrote the song that Whitney Houston sang, right? And so when I think about this, there's this idea of looking at our lives and moving and moving and moving and moving forward. Today, that's what Sharon Rolph is joining us talking about. It's a question of what stops you. Sharon, before we keep going here and we talk about courage, I want to ask you, how can people find out more about you? Give folks some information, because they're going to be hearing a lot more from you.
Yeah, even last night I put up some videos on YouTube for the first time. Wow,
my gosh.
Look out, world. So yeah, I put it under Effortless Vitality. I also put it under Sharon Rolph. And what I've done in the past is workshops, what I called What Do I Want to Do in Retirement? And you can actually take that off my website. It's on my website. So anywhere in the world, you can do my little workshop, What Do I Want to Do in Retirement? And I have also written a local newspaper article column once in a while called Reimagining Retirement. But my website is effortlessvitality.org. .com was already taken, so I had to go with .org. And let's see. Oh, I did a meetup group. Meetup group is another way to get some courage. I was looking for retirement people who wanted help in retirement, and I am a retirement coach. I went to coaching school, and am looking for people that I can help. The little videos that I put out on YouTube, one of them, I'm not sure it's there yet, but is who are you? Because I'd like to help everybody have an essence statement so they can live from the courage that's inside of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that you're doing that because, I mean, let's get at this right now. This idea now about courage. And I think one of the things you say is courage changes everything.
Yeah.
And I want to really dig deeper into that. So here's my question. Give me some examples of how that's happened for you or how you've seen it in other people.
Well, let me say that the last boss I had at Boeing, whenever I'd go into his office, like I could come into Pat's office and say, Pat, I have this idea. And I tell you, what I do is stick out my neck like this. This is my symbol of doing something innovative and not going by the rules. And my boss always said to me, yes. I was shocked, but what a gift that was. Try something, do something, be innovative. I'll give you a chance. And I have so had gratitude for that boss because he helped me blossom in ways that other people might have said, oh, let's put on the brake here. You're too fanatical or too outside the box. But I want to tell you also about listening to Oprah's show, Super Soul Sunday, and she had on there Shonda Rhimes. Now, Shonda is really known, I guess, for Grey's Anatomy and lots of big things. I wasn't that familiar with her, but she said when anybody would invite her to do, go to a happy hour or go to lunch or go to an event, she was most of the time too busy. No, it was always no. She would sit at home and do her research or whatever. And she's now written a book called A Year of Yes. What if your life was a year of yes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's simply making a new choice, having a new perspective on life. And she said, everything changed.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you about this. I think that you learn about the power of yes. And I started to write about the power of next. And if you're going to focus on the power of next, you have to focus on the power of yes. Our motto here is our go-to for everything is yes. And that's the way we approach things. And if we had not done that, we wouldn't be here today as a network.
Mm-hmm.
If we had fallen to the naysayers and you'll never be able to do that. And I'll tell you what, you want to hear the most, I mean, this is bizarre looking back. Do you want to hear what the most bizarre thing anybody ever said to me back in 2003 before we were anything about anything? Do you want to know what the most bizarre thing a top media syndicated company told me?
I'm going to guess who do you think you are?
No, they didn't quite tell me that because they really had a sense that, I'm just a little crazy, and they were right. They said to me, haven't you paid attention to the statistics, Pat? Women don't listen to talk radio. And I said, yes, they do. I said, but they don't listen to your talk radio. They don't listen to angry talk radio. They don't listen to things that aren't really relevant to how they can live their best lives. And I said, but they do listen to us, and they will listen to us. And he visited with me 2 years later, and he said, we can't believe the number of women that, and I love when they do this, you people under crust busting, right? You people. And how did you get in Christina Aguilera's bio? And I said, how do you know so much about us? He said, we investigated you. And so here's what I want to say about all of this. Yes, I can. Yes, you can. Yes, you are, Sharon. Because if we are not living and standing in that space, the yes space, we are in the no space by default, right?
So it gets real personal about who or what stops us. And how many people do you know that blame everything and everybody else? But it's a personal choice that who stops you is most of the time you. And you did it in spite of the popular news, right?
Yeah.
People that said it couldn't be done.
Well, think about it. I'm a little bit different. Do you know what I got from my 5-year-old birthday?
Not a clue.
Authentic boxing gloves. Authentic boxing gloves. Why? Because Uncle Dickie and Uncle Bobby and Uncle Johnny and Uncle Jimmy, I don't even have to say any more about my uncles, were in the boxing business. My 5th birthday, I was given a pair of boxing gloves. And my Uncle Dickie in particular, what a good looking guy this guy was, left me with one thing, and I'll leave everybody with this, right? And when we come back, we're going to dig deeper. So as Dickie and Jimmy and Bobby and Johnny were teaching me how to box, and by the way, I still get boxing lessons. They were teaching me how to box. I remember Dickie saying once, don't ever let your guard down. Hold your hands up high. Don't ever let your guard down. When we come back, what happens when we hold our guard so high that we are afraid to take risk, afraid to become vulnerable? But here's the thing that I learned about boxing. Oh, I know everybody's going to say, you're all going to send me emails about the most violent sport on the planet, but I will tell you it's not. Hockey actually is. But please, I don't really, I'm not a real big, like, go box, but it's great therapy. So here's what I want to say about it. There isn't a boxer on the planet or anyone on that planet, on the planet, that can take the shot, actually do what they do best without leaving themselves open. And that's the definition of vulnerability. What happens when we allow vulnerability to move us forward in a positive way? Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to hear all about that from Sharon Rolph. Go on where? Come on, Benny.
Oh, that's all you.
Benny, do you know what my favorite song, if you really want to get me to sing, do you want to know which one it is?
Sure.
By Stevie that I like? Kind of weird. I love this song. Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
I like Rihanna, but Rhiannon, but Sarah and Stan, there's something hypnotic about Sarah.
It is mesmerizing.
It is mesmerizing. Do you think it's the rhythm? What do you think it is? Do you think it's the build up?
It could be a little bit of both. We'll hit it the next break,
crescendo.
Yeah.
Oh. Welcome back, everybody. What stops you? Now, I heard a couple of things. You heard me talk a little bit about what stops me. But this is my introduction for all of you to Sharon Rolph. You're going to be hearing a lot more about Sharon, her work. Today, what we're talking about is what stops you. But really, we're talking about the launch of her show coming up here on the 28th. I think it's the 28th. But before we jump into talking about risk and vulnerability, again, how can people work with you? Because you're also a coach, so you also help people, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I want to inspire and impact tens of thousands of people to live, work, and give from their passion and purpose. So I have come on board with Dr. Pat to do the Fresh Courage, It's Your Time to Shine podcast, because Courage often needs encouragement. So I'm going to bring you people who have lived from that sense of courage and possibility and purpose. And so we're going to have some dynamic guests that I interview, just like Dr. Pat interviews people, who can inspire us with living through those transitions and through those questioning ourselves and say, okay, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can have the courage to live from my sense of talent and skill and what I want to bring to the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is part of this. This is why we step out and do some of the things we do, right, Sharon? I mean, it's like, I never thought in a million years that I'd even be sitting here talking to you, or that I have a 15-year relationship with anybody, but I got one with Benny.
Yeah.
me and Benny going on 16. Benny, if we hit 17, right?
Yep.
That will truly be the longest relationship I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Oh, doggy, talk about courage. Wait till we do that show.
No kidding.
I know. Okay, so Sharon, here's the deal. Risk and vulnerability, RV, not the kind you jump into like my buddies, Melanie and Annie, jumping into the RV and like traveling in their RV called Maya. No, this is risk and vulnerability. What is it about that captivated your interest?
Well, let me first bring up this statement that I feel strongly about, because there's a risk in believing this, that your vocation is a place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. The problem with this is that you may not be able to articulate your deep gladness. And that's where a coach can help you with that. And the world's deep hunger may not be able to articulate, oh, yeah, I need that. I mean, for example, doing this artwork with fabric to me was a risk. I used it first to put some scripture on there to encourage and inspire people, but what will they think of my skill, my talent, what I want to share? They might receive it, they might not. But another one that kind of has that deep conviction to me is a saying by Thomas Wolfe: if one has a talent and cannot use it, one has failed. If one has a talent and only uses half of it, one has partially failed. If one has a talent and uses the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction and triumph few people ever know. Now, that is sky high, stretching, empowering, exciting to me, because when I have thought about standing before God and say, some of that talent you gave me, I buried it. Wrong answer. And I don't want that for anybody else. So Brene Brown describes vulnerability as the willingness to show up. So I show up with my fabric art and be seen. Are you willing to be seen? With no guarantee of the outcome. But you know what? To me, that's where spirit does its magic. Because I trust the process that if I show up, there could be some pretty dynamic results. And I want to believe in that instead of the fear. How do you take that, Dr. Pat?
I just think that for me, it is, how much discomfort do we really want in our lives? That's the deal for me. Because what I've learned in my lifetime is the degree of discomfort that I'm having, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual, the degree of discomfort is directly proportionate to the distance that I am keeping from my vision, my dream, and my path. It can be measured that way.
Mm-hmm.
If I am, or anyone out there, if you are miserable, right, then that is an indicator that you're being called to really do what you love in the world, or really heal yourself, or really help another person, or do something. And here's what I love about this. I don't know that there's ever been anything I've done where I've had to take a risk, because that's what we're talking about, where I haven't had to step out of a comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can't think of a single thing that I've done to do that. So I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I've often said on the previous podcasts I did last year, people don't often change until they hurt bad enough to want to change. Now that's going at what you're saying a little differently, but the essence is still kind of the same. Are you willing to face that discomfort and plow through what could be, in fact, a smoke screen? So my example of being taking a risk was doing these podcasts. I'd never done podcasts before, and actually, I consider myself an introvert. And but there was a story that I saw online back, I think it was last April, that Andy Shaw did a show, and he's written a book. I forgot to get the detail of his book, but he says how to have mental strength. And his example was to remember in your mind something that makes you feel wonderful. And his example was a picture where his son was sitting in the back seat of an airplane and he was flying the airplane. That picture gave him so much joy and wonderful feelings that he suggested to the audience that we have that one thing that makes us feel so wonderful. And after 2-3 weeks after the show, I thought, why just stop with one? Why not have how many ever we can come up with? Well, of my list of 6 or 8 things, I saw that more than half of them were in front of people. That was a big surprise to me, but wow. It's what gave me that courage to be heard and be seen in front of people. And maybe that was the design way back, how many years ago. And it gives me the warm feelings that I can do this.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about, the process of creativity. And, I talked a little bit about comfort zones. I want to take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk with you about what gets us from living in the world of probability to the world of possibility. And there's a fundamental difference. Probability is studied at many, many levels in higher education and beyond. There's mathematical algorithms for this. And so we do it in our lives. We say, what is the likelihood? Because that's probability. What is the likelihood I will get that job? And if our probability quotient falls below the degree by which intuition and possibility can interact, then we don't do it. When we come back, we're going to talk about possibilities and the courage habit. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. In the sea of love. Come on. Everyone. So drowning in the sea of love where everyone would love to drown. Thank you. Thank you, Stevie. for that right now in this moment. I love that song, Benny. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. This is the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. If you want to find out more about us, go to the drpatshow.com. Also, I got a couple of emails from everybody about Power Up Radio. Power Up Radio will be relaunching shortly. We're doing a few things differently with Power Up. And so we did a couple of experiments, but with a panel. And so we're moving to a different format. And that format will be where we have multiple guests on it. And so a few things we want to do differently in that format. The other thing we're also doing is we're considering half-hour, 30-minute podcast for that show. So a lot of things I like to experiment with, but yeah, that will be coming back. Today, Sharon Rolph joining me here today, and we're talking about what stops you. And, you know, we've gone through, Sharon, talking about courage. We've talked about change. We've talked about risk and vulnerability. But I did mention this idea of a comfort zone. And I want to talk with you or hear your perspective on what is it about comfort zones that could either stop us or move us forward?
Well, I'm hearing more and more that if you're too comfortable, you're not going to be creative and stretching yourself and growing. And I think life is all about growing and learning. So comfort zones kind of smack of that mundane, just go with the flow kind of thing, where I think we're really here to make a difference. And stretching and learning is what life is really. One of my blocks I do is grow and give, the art of fulfillment, as Tony Robbins says. So I think we often let worry stop us instead of hope and faith. So if we're thinking about all the ways it can't work, then that's a worry. It's not.
Yep.
It's not coming from that faith and possibility. So I really believe when it says anything is possible, that eliminates the question. Anything is possible. So again, it's more often that we stop ourselves instead of, life.
Yeah. In the view of things, as we look at this, there are things that help us move out of our comfort zone, but also, we're talking about comfort zone, fear as habits versus happiness and vitality. I mentioned that you were going to talk about the courage habit. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, the courage habit, I haven't actually read the book, but it's a book by Kate Sabota. And I just think the main thing about being courageous is being curious. And I think you said at the beginning, Pat, how curious you are. Well, can you remember how curious you were at 3 years old? When you observe a 3-year-old, what stops them? It's usually those know this, know that. but you're learning, you're growing, you're checking things out. You don't know what stops you because you haven't lived before. So what a difference curiosity makes to that learning and growing process. And another thing might be that it's hard to ask for help, but it's possible. Just get curious about it. So I want you to embrace exploring possibilities, because that's what could open your dream door if you explore and ask for help and keep knocking and have that perseverance that your dream is worth pursuing.
Yeah. When we take a look at ourselves and we really look at the world of possibilities, what are some of the things that you've learned over your lifetime, that have helped you to understand what enables us to step forward in possibilities and what holds us back?
It's that whole, for me, it's that whole vulnerability thing. I've been driving Lyft to pay off some debts, and I'm getting pretty good now at taking the risk of talking to my guests out of, something out of the clear blue sky. If I feel a prompting about a subject or an idea, it's like one day I said to the guy I picked up at the airport, "Oh, we got lots of ground moving here on the sides of the freeway." So he said, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." I said, we finally decided to pay for a lake rail and mass transit, and now we want it yesterday. And he says, "Yeah, and I think you're going at it too fast." And I was shocked that my little sense of commenting about how the freeway is changing directly identified with what his purpose for being here. I was so tickled that I had the courage, the risk to something out of the clear blue. But I'm getting better at trusting what subject to bring up to my writers, because I love that close connection.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because I think that we all learn at some lesson is, who is your audience? Who are we speaking with? It's fascinating, to see what topics will come up in any group. But I know for sure that I have various groups of people that I associate with. But I think the one thing that I do love is exploring possibilities and really stepping out and really looking at what else is possible. And that is an expression I learned from Dr. Glenna Rice. And ever since that, I explore that. And that is, I think, what you're referring to, because possibilities by themselves might require a layer of courage to move to. Yeah. I want to thank you for today. Please let folks know again how they can find out more about you. And then I also want to know what your personal message is for everyone today.
So my show starts on Monday at noon online, and it will be Fresh Courage. It's your time to shine. Now, we started to call it a byline of you're the boss now, but hey, in retirement, you are the boss, and you may not realize it yet. So I want to inspire possibilities and purpose and creativity, and help you get rid of that old mindset and start embracing the I can be different, unique, and expressive in this time and place, because this world is so much more needing us. My conviction is that our communities, our neighborhoods, our nation will be stronger when we're living from our dream and our purpose. And I want that for everybody. It will change the world.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. And that is Fresh Courage. It's Monday, the 28th, noon Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com. And many of you will be able to tap into it on iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it. Thank you all. Thank you, Sharon, so much for today.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank all of you for tuning us in and turning us on. Benny, Kat, pushing all the right buttons. We'll see you next time.
Swim